Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. For Duggar family latest news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. Peaceful late summer evening in Springdale, Arkansas, was suddenly shattered by the sound of hurried footsteps, anxious phone calls, and flashing emergency lights. The Duggar family, known nationwide for their large family and reality TV presence, was facing a crisis unlike any other. One of their beloved daughters, Jessa Duggar Seawald, was rushing her newborn baby girl to the hospital. Her face pale, eyes swollen from crying, and her hands trembling as she clutched her child to her chest. This wasn't just any family emergency. This was a medical nightmare. A joyful beginning. Just a few weeks earlier, Jessa and her husband, Ben Seawald, had announced the arrival of their fifth child, a beautiful baby girl named Hope Elizabeth Seawald. The world watched with joy as the couple posted pictures of their healthy, pink-cheeked daughter swaddled in a soft pink blanket. Fans flooded social media with well wishes and blessings. Jessa, already a mother of 4, was glowing with happiness. "She's our little miracle," she had written on Instagram. "Hope has brought so much light into our home. She's strong, alert, and already has her daddy's nose." But just days after settling into a routine, something began to feel off. Hope wasn't eating well, her cry sounded weaker, she was lethargic, and then one terrifying night she stopped breathing for a moment. The emergency, Jessa screamed for Ben, who rushed into the room to find Hope limp in Jessa's arms. Ben's hand shook as he grabbed the baby and performed CPR while Jessa frantically dialed 911. "Please God, no." "Not her," Jessa repeated as tears streamed down her face. The paramedics arrived within minutes and rushed Hope to Arkansas Children's Hospital. The Duggar family was notified immediately. Within hours, Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, along with several of Jessa's siblings, arrived at the hospital in shock. "This can't be happening," Michelle whispered, clutching her Bible in one hand and Jessa's hand in the other. "Not our little Hope." Tests, wires, and fear. Hope was admitted to the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit PICU. Tubes and wires surrounded her tiny body. Doctors moved quickly, running a battery of tests to find out what was wrong. Ben and Jessa sat by her bedside, praying and crying as nurses moved in and out with updates. The doctors were puzzled. At first, they suspected neonatal sepsis, a dangerous blood infection in newborns. But as test results trickled in, things became more complicated. "She's fighting something," Dr. Allen, the pediatric specialist, told Jessa and Ben. "We suspect it may be a rare genetic condition affecting her immune system. Her body isn't responding normally to infections. We're still running advanced diagnostics." Jessa's world began to spin. Her baby was in danger, and no one knew how to stop it. The family gathers as news broke of the emergency. More Duggars arrived at the hospital. Jill, Jana, Joanna, John David, and even Josh, who had previously remained distant due to legal controversies. Despite the family's strained dynamics in recent years, this crisis pulled them back together. The waiting room became a place of whispered prayers and quiet tears. Jill Duggar, once estranged from the family, embraced Jessa tightly. "I'm here, okay? No matter what. We'll get through this," she whispered. Jana brought food and clothes from home. "You need strength, Jess. You haven't eaten in hours." Even Jim Bob, who hadn't spoken publicly in months, addressed the media briefly. "We ask for privacy and prayers. Our granddaughter is fighting for her life." The diagnosis. After 2 days of uncertainty, the doctors finally had an answer. Hope was diagnosed with severe combined immunodeficiency (SCID), sometimes called bubble baby disease. It's an extremely rare and life-threatening condition where the body can't fight off infections due to a faulty immune system. "She was born without a functioning immune system," Dr. Allen explained. "Without immediate treatment, even a common cold could be deadly." Jessa broke down. "How did this happen?" "I had a perfect pregnancy," she sobbed. "Why her?" Ben, his voice cracking, asked the question on everyone's mind. "What's the treatment? What do we do now?" Dr. Allen responded with both urgency and hope. "Hope needs a bone marrow transplant. And we need a donor fast." A race against time, the hospital began searching for a bone marrow match. All family members were tested immediately. Process usually takes weeks, but for Hope, time was running out. Every hour mattered. To everyone's surprise, the best match wasn't a sibling or a parent, it was Jill Duggar Dillard. "I'll do it," Jill said without hesitation. No matter what it takes, though estranged for years, she stepped up for the baby without question. The hospital began preparing her for donation, and the procedure was scheduled for the following week. Faith in the fire. During the waiting period, Jessa and Ben lived at the hospital, barely sleeping. The family took turns staying with them. Support poured in from fans, church members, and the broader Christian community. Michelle led daily prayer circles in the hospital chapel. Jim Bob read scripture at Hope's bedside every night. Ben wrote a post that went viral. "Our daughter is the strongest person I've ever met. She doesn't even know how to speak, yet she's teaching us more about faith than we've ever known. Please keep praying for our little girl." We believe in miracles. Hope's story was featured on news outlets across the country. The hashtag Hope for Hope began trending. The transplant. On a rainy Friday morning, Jill underwent the bone marrow donation procedure. The mood in the hospital was tense yet hopeful. Everyone gathered in the waiting area, praying for both Jill and little Hope. Ben held Jessa's hand. "She's going to make it," he whispered. The transplant was a success, but the battle wasn't over. Hope's body needed to accept the new marrow, and there was still risk of infection or rejection. The next 10 days would be the most critical of all. Miracles and mercy. On day 4 post-transplant, Hope developed a fever. Panic surged again. Doctors rushed to adjust her medications and placed her under strict isolation. For 24 hours, her temperature spiked dangerously high, and her oxygen levels dropped. Jessa fell to her knees and cried out to God, "Please don't take her. I've trusted you all my life. Please, I need her." Then, as if a switch had flipped, Hope's fever broke. Her vitals began to stabilize. Day 6. She opened her eyes and moved her fingers. Day 8. She took milk from a bottle. Day 10. Her blood work showed early signs of marrow acceptance. The doctors called it a miracle. A family reunited. Weeks later, Jessa and Ben were finally allowed to take Hope home, with protective protocols and regular checkups. The family celebrated with a small, private gathering. Jill was honored by the family in a surprise dinner. Jessa tearfully stood up to speak. "We've had our differences. We've been through pain. But when it mattered most, you saved my daughter's life. I'll never forget that. I love you." Jill stood and embraced her. "We're family. That's what matters." Even Jim Bob and Derek hugged, a gesture no one expected. The message. Months later, Jessa returned to social media with a powerful post. "Through fire and fear, we've learned that love conquers all. We named her Hope because that's what she gave us, hope in the darkest moments. Thank you for every prayer. God heard them all." Hope's story became one of faith, unity, and healing. Jim Bob arrested. Jim Bob's house sold for $2.5 million, demolished. It was a sunny morning in Tontatown, Arkansas, but the Duggar household was clouded with confusion, whispers, and a sense of disbelief. For decades, Jim Bob Duggar had been the face of the massive Duggar family, respected, feared, and admired by many for raising 19 children with firm values. But now, everything had come crashing down. News spread like wildfire. Jim Bob Duggar had been arrested. The breaking point. She started like any other day. Michelle Duggar was in the kitchen preparing breakfast for the few children who still lived at home. Jim Bob had left early in the morning, supposedly for a business meeting. But hours later, FBI agents knocked on the door, their presence calm but their message explosive. "We have a warrant for the arrest of Mr. Jim Bob Duggar," one of them said. Michelle stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. "What is this about?" she asked, confused and scared. "He's being investigated for financial fraud and illegal property dealings connected to a shady real estate company he secretly started 5 years ago," the agent explained. Secrets and lies. As the news made headlines, more shocking details emerged. Jim Bob had allegedly funneled large sums of money through shell companies, all while claiming religious donations on his taxes. What's more disturbing, some of the properties he had invested in had environmental violations, and others were bought using forged documents. For years, Jim Bob had maintained the image of a conservative, God-fearing man. But behind the scenes, he had been living a double life, chasing wealth, manipulating paperwork, and keeping secrets even from his own family. Michelle's betrayal. What truly shocked the nation wasn't Jim Bob's arrest, it was Michelle's response. Just days after his arrest, Michelle released a statement to the press. "I have known something was wrong for a long time. I tried to get him to open up, but he shut me out. I begged him to be honest with me and our children, but he refused. I cannot support what he has done, and I will not stand by him in court. Fans and critics alike were stunned. Michelle, who had once proudly stood beside her husband through every scandal and controversy, was now turning her back on him. She had contacted a real estate agent to sell the family home, a massive estate estimated at $2.50 million. The children react. The Duggar children had mixed reactions. Jessa was heartbroken but refused to speak to the media. Jill, who had been estranged from the family, wrote on Instagram, "Truth always comes out. I pray for healing and accountability." No one is above the law. Duggar, living in California, was reportedly devastated but said she had suspected things weren't right for years. Josh, whose own criminal past haunted the family, remained silent. Many of the younger children were shielded from the chaos, but the older ones were left to pick up the pieces, selling the mansion. Within weeks, real estate photos of the Duggar mansion were published online. The sprawling home that once echoed with laughter, prayers, and daily chores was now empty, its rooms stripped of memories. Kitchen where Michelle had cooked countless meals, the boys' dormitory Jim Bob proudly built, all were now just spaces waiting for new owners. The house was listed for $2.5 million, and a wealthy buyer from Texas quickly showed interest. Property, despite its history, was a stunning piece of land. By the end of the month, the house was sold. A chapter closed. Courtroom drama. Jim Bob appeared in court handcuffed and pale. Courtroom was filled with reporters, family members, and legal teams. His lawyers argued that he was being framed, but the prosecution presented detailed documents, emails, and testimonies from former employees. Michelle did not attend. Instead, she was seen at a local women's Bible study group, quietly holding her Bible and talking to friends. When asked by reporters if she would ever forgive Jim Bob, she simply said, "I forgive him as a Christian. But as a wife and mother, I will not forget what he's done to this family." A family divided. The Duggar brand was over. TLC, which had already canceled their shows long ago, released a statement, "We are saddened to hear of the ongoing troubles within the Duggar family. We hope they can find healing and peace." Merchandise sales, book royalties, and even YouTube ad revenue began to drop. The once powerful Duggar name was now associated with scandal and betrayal. Children began going their separate ways. Some changed their last names legally. Others started therapy. And a few even publicly denounced their father's teachings. New beginnings. Months later, Michelle was spotted in a smaller home in rural Arkansas. Rumors suggested she was starting a ministry for single mothers and had even filed for separation, a near unthinkable move in Duggar family tradition. Jim Bob, on the other hand, remained under house arrest awaiting trial. The judge had frozen many of his accounts, and legal experts predicted a potential 10 to 15-year sentence if convicted on all counts. The once mighty patriarch was now isolated, broken, and disgraced. Final thoughts. The fall of Jim Bob Duggar sent shockwaves through not only his family but also the Christian conservative community that once idolized him. His arrest revealed the dangers of unchecked power and blind loyalty. And Michelle's decision to walk away, both emotionally and physically, was a moment of liberation, not just for her but for many women who had felt silenced in similar relationships. As the world watches the aftermath, one thing is clear: the Duggar legacy will never be the same.